Lightroom 3 is just full of new features. Let's start by looking at the library module and see what's new there. When you look over here in the left-hand panel, you're going to see right away a new pane called Publish Services, and I really like this. I can now interact with my online photo sharing services such as Flickr by dragging and dropping images straight from Lightroom. Let me show you really quickly. I'm going to drop this right into PhotoStream. And now you'll see in PhotoStream the picture I've just dropped there. And if I click Publish right now, which I'll do, it is automatically going through the internet and adding this photo to my Flickr account. And I think that is just so cool. And it'll show me when it's done. And it'll also allow me to view any kind of comments that have been posted to Flickr over here. This picture doesn't have any comments. It was just published. Let me go over to Flickr now, and you can see that the picture is in Flickr right here as a new photograph. There it is. Another thing that's new in Lightroom 3 is the ability to go into a folder, right-click on the folder, and import directly into this folder. This opens the import dialog box, and that folder will be automatically selected, and then you just select your source and it'll go right into the folder that you've selected there in the catalog. Again, that's just set up so you can streamline and make the process of importing images that much easier. Over here in Collections, there's something new that I think a lot of people will welcome. In the past, if you click on a collection and you set up a library filter, I used the backslash to open that up. And let's make a metadata filter based on shutter speed. And now we only have the 9 pictures that are appropriate to that 1/320th of a second. And now, if I went over to another collection here, there's nothing there, but let's go here. And then come back, let's say a day later or a week later, to the collections. In the earlier versions of Lightroom, that library filter would have stuck to those settings. And I may have forgotten that the library filter was on, and I'd view these pictures and there would be many missing. Now you can see it defaults to none. However, I can still maintain the stickiness by clicking the lock that I'm circling right here. Another thing that's new in the collections, let's go into another collection, and now we'll be able to see by this icon. This is a new icon that appears on the thumbnails, and it shows that that photo is in a collection. And if I click on that icon, it'll show me that that file is not only in the Nordic Light Festival collection, it's also been published to PhotoStream. If it had been in multiple collections, that would show up as well. So this is a new little treat that you'll find in Lightroom 3. And another thing in Lightroom 3's library module that you may or may not notice, and that has to do with just the performance of Lightroom, the speed. It's been optimized so that now when you have a large library full of image files, it should be more responsive. Thumbnails should appear quicker as you scroll around between the images. That should appear more responsive. And then when you enlarge images, it also should be more responsive. This is something, of course, that will be a little bit subjective and dependent on the speed of your computer, but it has been optimized for speed now. So Lightroom 3 just is so full of features, and we'll look at some of the new features as they pertain to other modules in other videos. Lightroom 3 is full of new features, and especially in the Develop module. I'm going to go through these really pretty quickly because there are so many of them, and I won't get into any of the details. But let me just start here over on the left side in the Develop module under Collections. You can see that is brand new. We can now go right into a collection from the Develop module. We don't have to go back to the Library module to find our collections. They're right there. It's very handy. Over on the right side, let's go through some of the new features in the Develop module. Here, you can see right away, again, that the adjustment brush is a little bit different. No longer do we have those buttons. It was an option instead of sliders. And I think for most people, that will not be a big loss at all. The sliders are much easier to use. You see a little icon here under the color tint. Now we know that there's no color applied as a tint. We didn't have that before. Lightroom 3. Moving down the right panel, let's take a look at some of the other new features. I'm going to close the basic pane because there's not really that much new there. The tone curve, this is something that's going to get a lot of people excited. When you click on the icon here on the right, you have a full point curve. So you can get right in there and move those points around as much as you want. You can go pretty wild. This was not possible until now. That will certainly get into the details of using this point curve in other tutorials. HSL, colors, black and white. Well, you can see right there, this is new. Instead of grayscale, we're now calling what most people know it as is black and white. Split toning's pretty much the same. Detail, there's a lot of new stuff when it comes to detail and especially noise reduction. I think you'll see when you work with your images that the new noise reduction capabilities in Lightroom 3 are just absolutely amazing. In fact, they're so amazing I have to open up a picture and show you an example of what I mean, because this has really gotten a lot of people excited. Here's a photograph that was taken at 3200 ISO, and you can see there's a fair bit of noise there. But watch this. This is just mind-blowing, the power of this noise reduction in Lightroom 3. You can see amazing amount of improvement there, and also just amazing amount of control. I can adjust the detail slider and bring out more detail in the fine detail areas while holding the noise reduction in the smoother areas. So right there, turn this on and off using the switch, and look at that. It's amazing what you can do now with noise reduction. So moving down this right panel, we come to lens corrections. And this, I can't say enough about this. This is going to blow your mind when you start working with this. I'm not even going to start to work on it because if I do, I'll spend too much time on this video. Basically, what this means is that if you're working with lenses that have any kind of distortion, you'll be able to enable a profile and have Lightroom automatically go in and fix any distortions or aberrations or vignetting that are caused by your lens. And not only that, you'll be able to go in manually and do all kinds of transforms to your image that you never could do before in Lightroom. And there we go. This is going to really be amazing what you can do with your image using this new lens correction controls found in Lightroom 3. Effects pane is new. You have here some really improved post-crop vignetting capabilities where you can get much more natural-looking vignettes. In the earlier versions, it just basically painted black or white on the edges. And this new vignetting tool will give you much more realistic-looking vignettes. As far as the grain slider, that's new. And I guess you could say that Lightroom's gotten so good at reducing noise that now we want to add noise or add grain to make it look more film-like. And this is new to Lightroom 3 as well. Close that pane. Under camera calibration, so here you can see you can choose between process versions. This is the current process. This is the older process version, and you see down here in the lower right, the explanation point appears warning me that this is an earlier process version. If I go under settings, I can also see which process is being used, the 2010, which is the current, the most up-to-date process, or 2003. So this is something to be aware of if you've worked on images, earlier versions of Lightroom. Let me give you an example here. I've opened an image that I've brought in from Lightroom 2. That explanation point there is telling me that this is being rendered or displayed using the earlier process, and that if I want to update it, I need to either click on this explanation point, or I can select it here under camera calibration, or I can do it under settings right here. I haven't gotten into all the details and the improvements in the Develop module, but this should give you a good general overview of some of the major new features that are in Lightroom 3's Develop module. So we're looking at what's new in the slideshow module in Lightroom 3, and I guess this is the thing that's going to really excite most people. It certainly excited me. Instead of just being able to export a PDF file, we can now export video of our slideshow. So when I click on this, you can see that I can name my video and send it to the location I want. And then I can also choose the video preset, depending on where I want the video to go. And this now will then make a video that will be playable anywhere based on the slideshow that I created in the module with all its dissolves and duration and even the sound itself. So this is a great way of sharing the slideshows that you've created in Lightroom 3 just about anywhere. So I think that's one of the biggest improvements to the slideshow module. Over here at least on the Mac side of things, we're able to bypass the whole iTunes interface and work with our soundtrack or our music files directly. A lot of people had trouble with the iTunes connection. Also, the other thing that we can do is make the music fit to the size or the duration of the time of the slideshow. This is dimmed out because I haven't selected music, but if I had, then fit to music would be an option, and it would automatically set the music and the time of the slides so they match. You can do that manually down here with slide duration and slides and fades. So this is pretty cool that you can have your videos made from your slideshow module. You can also prepare the previews in advance, so you don't have that problem where in the middle of the slideshow it slows down or stops because it hasn't generated the preview in time for the slideshow. Big improvements in the slideshow module. The big news in Lightroom 3 is right here under Custom Package. I'll select that and I'll show you how this works. I'll drag an image from my film strip over here, and you can see those little bounding boxes. That means I can resize it. But now this is where it really gets cool, where I can drag another image over, and I can have multiple images, different images, on the same page, and I can size them differently. So now let's get another image, and you can see right away it acts almost like a layout program. And this is really cool because we couldn't do this before in Lightroom. We could put multiple images on a single page, of course, but most of the time, if you wanted to have this kind of capability of changing the individual sizes, it wouldn't work with multiple images. It would only work with the same image. So this custom package is brand new, and I think you'll see right away that this has got a lot of potential. Main thing that's new in the print module is over here under page, we can now choose a page background color. And this will be really good news for the printers because we'll be able to come up with wild colors and use up a lot of ink or not. But these are a couple new features in the print module of Lightroom 3, all adding up to a really super cool new program with a lot of cool new features. Over here in the web module of Lightroom 3, we don't see too many new features. You'll see what you're used to from previous versions of Lightroom if you're coming from them. There's one thing that it allows you to now add a watermarking, which we could always do before, but now with the new watermarking tool, it's really amazing. Watch this. I'm going to go ahead and select Edit Watermarks, and this brings up the watermark editor you see here. In the old days of Lightroom, you could add a watermark, and it would always be in the lower left-hand corner, and you had really no control over it. But now you have so many choices. You can actually use a JPEG or a PNG graphic as your watermark. You can choose from all your various fonts available on your system, style, alignment, color. You can just go crazy with your font, but that's just the start of it. You have now the ability to control the opacity through the opacity slider. Size here, you see how that's changing on the screen, and I can make it go vertical, horizontal. I can kind of fine tune where it's going to be positioned that way, and I can anchor it to a different part of the image through these controls. I can rotate it. I think you're getting the idea that this is really cool, that the ability to have control of your watermarks like this is really a major step forward. And once you've created one watermark, you can save that out. I've already created one that I'm going to use, so I'll cancel there. And you can see that when I've selected watermarking here in the web gallery, the new watermarks will appear the same way on each one of these images. This is going to be something you're going to find useful also in the print module, or anytime you export any of your images, the new watermarking editor will be available for you to make your own custom watermarks. And I think this is going to be pretty exciting for most people out there. The import dialog in Lightroom 3 has gone through an extensive redesign. Let me get to it through this button, Import, in the left panel in the library module. And you can see right away it's a completely different design than we're familiar with in Lightroom 2 and 1. So we have a left panel here and a right panel. We have the preview area in the middle. It's organized, laid out much like the interface in Lightroom itself. You can't collapse these left and right panels. They're fixed. But again, you should feel that you're in a more familiar space here. So you see how it's laid out at the top. This is the area where you select your images to be imported. And then this is how you want to move the images or copy them or add them. And then over here on the right, this is the destination where you're actually moving the files if you're moving them, or what you're doing to the files as you bring them in, the way the files are handled. So it's again organized much more in line with the general Lightroom interface. So on the left here, when I select a source, which I've done here, this is an external device, a SD card. Right away, you'll see a difference in what Lightroom can import. We can now bring in video files. This is designated by this video icon here. And Lightroom doesn't necessarily edit or do anything to the video files, but it will now bring them into the catalog. You can play them using your default video player on your computer. So this whole preview area now, we have the grid view, very similar to the grid view in the Lightroom library module. We can change the size of the thumbnails here. We have the loop view, so we can get a big version of each one of the thumbnails and just see how they look before we even bring them in. Go back to the grid view. Over here on the left, a couple things that I really like. Let's say I'm bringing in some images from my external hard drive. Now you can see on the left it's starting to get kind of complicated in terms of all the folders. And if I want to go into another folder, we're really getting pretty deep here in terms of all the information that's presented. But if I just double click on this folder now, it collapses everything and I can get into a more collapsed view. Just those images or those folders in that folder. Up here I have to include subfolders if I want to include photos that are in the subfolders. That's why you couldn't see any over there until I selected that. I'll deselect that. So there's some things like that that make using the whole import dialog much easier, much faster, more intuitive. And finally, down here in the lower left, if I click on the Show Fewer Options, you can see I get a collapse view. So it's definitely simplified. And here I can create an import preset with a whole set of settings from the enlarged view. And then they'll show up here as a preset. And I don't have to get all the clutter of the expanded view. I can just go right to a preset that has, let's say, how I want to handle the pictures, where they're coming from, where they're going. Again, this is just all about workflow, speeding up the time that it takes to bring pictures into Lightroom and getting to work on them. And I think you'll find this another great improvement in Lightroom 3. Two new features that I think will be welcomed by many people in Lightroom 3 are the ability to bring video files into Lightroom and also CMYK files. Now the video files here designated by this little icon, let me go to the loop view and you can see it a little bit clearer. You can't play the video in Lightroom or edit it, but it does now import into Lightroom. And if you click on that, and let me turn the sound down so it doesn't blast away. I'm using my default video viewer. So that's a big addition to Lightroom, is the ability now to at least bring in video, have a record of it, and then use the default editor to play it. Over here, this image was saved in Photoshop as a CMYK, which is a file format that's used by people who are going to pre-press houses. But in the past, been a problem because the CMYK files weren't even read or recognized by Lightroom. Now you can at least organize them as part of your image set. You're not working in CMYK. You're not actually exporting in CMYK. But at least now Lightroom will recognize and display the CMYK. So 2 new formats, really, that can be imported into Lightroom and really expanding the capabilities of Lightroom. This is all in Lightroom 3.